us. It is Classic FM 97.3, the station that plays every song you know. And yes, it is exactly 1:30 on a Monday in the Classic Lounge. You know what time it is? It's time to ask a professional. Yes, it's where we invite experts from different walks of life. We've had all sorts here, except an astronaut. I'm looking forward to having an astronaut on the show sometime. But today we're not going out of space. In fact, we are going into the minds of people, how to talk to people, how to be a public speaker, because that's what it is. If you're speaking to people, you're going into their minds and trying to influence in one way or another, or at least to be able to penetrate their thoughts and sometimes their actions as well. My name is Lawrence, and this happens every Monday from 1:30 to 2. My guest with me today is a professional, an expert public speaker, a master of ceremonies. I wanted to say mistress.
Lawrence.
Of course not. Yeah, she's one who has about 15 years experience in public speaking. She's worked with all kinds of companies in terms of training and hosting as well. Good to have you here today.
Glad to be here, Lawrence. Thank you so much. Finally getting to meet you. I listen to you all the time.
Yes, it's good to have you here. Funny thing is, real quick of a background story. She has sent me a message weeks ago by now.
Yeah, a month ago.
A month ago, yes. Wanting to feature on the show, and she let me know her very impressive resume of what she's doing and what she does. And I thought, oh yeah, definitely we're gonna have you on. Unfortunately, I missed it. I lost the message. And so because I usually have people scheduled, so I put her down to schedule for today. But I didn't put her number or nothing. And so I was searching for your message from email, from my WhatsApp. Eventually, I found it. So. It's
Glory be.
Glory be, indeed, hallelujah.
Man.
Okay, funny thing is, I actually have a man of God scheduled to come on the show sometime.
Oh, fantastic.
He's big on family counseling, so we're speaking to him. Anyway, so you're here today.
Yeah.
I wanna hand the mic to you to give me your profile. Give us the listener now your profile. But tell us, brag what it is you do.
I'm going to do all that. November 2007 was the beginning of my career as a professional speaker and master of ceremonies. I chose, it didn't happen by chance per se, I chose because I felt I could build a profitable, happy career doing what I enjoy doing and doing what I do very well. And so I began to speak professionally and train in public speaking and presentation skills. 7 years down the line, I decided to start training MCs and speakers because I believe that they are restless talkatives like myself who know what to do with the microphone and on the microphone, but need some guidance, some hand-holding. And so, fast forward till now, I've trained over 2,000 MCs across the world. I've trained over 18,000 individuals in speaking, and I have a lot of videos on YouTube that are very helpful. I love my job. It's taken me everywhere.
Obviously.
I have worked for all sorts of clients in oil and gas, in manufacturing, in retail. It just is one of the best jobs there is on earth if you are like me, and I'm happy to share the wealth of my knowledge.
Yes, and your skills.
Yes.
Now, if you have been listening to the last 2 minutes or so since she started talking, I hadn't given you her name. I was quite intentional. I wanted the name to come after
Come on.
her braggadocious resume, more or less. Her name is Joyce Daniels, and it's very unique because you don't find a lot of female master of ceremonies. Not a lot of female MCs out there. And when we say MC, it's not the rappers. These are a different kind of MCs. But these are the ones that host events, all kinds of events. I myself am one, and I like to, should I say, segregate myself and say I am a corporate social master of ceremonies. Yeah, because there's been no offense meant, but there was a time, even though that's changing a bit now, but there's a time when comedians kind of came in and kind of messed up the whole thing.
Like you said, it's changing.
Everybody wants a comedian to host an event. Everybody. In fact, it's happened so much so that I remember one of the events planners I would usually work with. She came up to me for this event and I said, well, tell them I am not a comedian. I'll make you laugh, I'll make you have fun, you'll get entertained, we'll have a great time. I will not do stand-up comedy. Get one man, your mama, your papa.
They walk up for road.
Walk up for road. I don't do that. And so it turned out the bride wanted a comedian. And so, it's
Let that go.
I let that go. So
That was her loss.
months later, this same planner I work with came for another job. And so because of the whole planning and everything, I didn't ask, hey, what about that job then? Kind of reminded her, I was like, man, they went to get one guy that's a comedian. And the guy didn't read his audience. The girl's father is a top at the church. The groom's father, parents are top people in the church. And they said that
He was going
he was
off.
cracking explicit jokes here and there. And it was just a bit of a very unprofessional thing that went on. But
Terrible.
very technical. So that's why we need you to teach what it's. Okay, it's two phases. Apparently, there's the public speaking aspect of
Yes.
it, which we're treating today.
Yes.
And gracefully, you've agreed to be with us here next week for part
Yes.
2 to train on how to become a master of ceremonies, MC. So over to you now, Joyce. What's the, okay, first of all, who's a public speaker?
Everybody is a public speaker because the public is everyone who is not you.
Okay.
So if you're speaking to one person, either face to face or over the phone, or like you are right now speaking to the whole world from this room, you are a public speaker.
Okay.
So public speaking does not necessarily involve going on a stage. It involves speaking to someone other than yourself. So your audience could be your family members, it could be your spouse, your children, your colleagues, it could be your friends, and then of course it could be people who are interviewing you for a job, clients who you're trying to pitch to make a sale. So anyone you're speaking to that is not you is your public. Therefore, we all are public speakers from day one. Even children in primary school are public
Yeah.
speakers. Now, some people need public speaking on their jobs day to day, and so they may now tag themselves public speakers. But we all are public speakers.
I guess the number one thing on a public speaker's mind, or a person who's going to address the public, is stage fright. That's everybody is. It's how to overcome stage fright is one thing we need to go into right now.
Yes.
Right, but you've just broken down different kinds of public. So long as it's not yourself, you're speaking to someone else, then you're addressing the public. Right? But is a public speaker also a moderator?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A moderator, the answer is in the question. A moderator moderates. So you might be speaking to moderate a conversation, a negotiation, a panel discussion, or any kind of conversation or discussion. That's a moderator. Moderator, it means you are checking the time, checking the flow, checking that the answers are right, checking that the questions are coming in. That's moderation. Not everyone is privileged to moderate, and sometimes some people are asked to moderate because of what they do, what people expect them to know, where they work, or placement in society. Just because Lawrence has been on radio for this number of years, and I have a program for speakers, and I go, "Oh, Lawrence should know what to do. He should know how to moderate." So I call Lawrence to moderate. So you see, because of where you're placed in society, we ask you to moderate. So it can be learned. Anybody can learn to moderate. Anyone can learn to be a moderator. And that's what we do really at events. At events, as event hosts, we moderate. So not every event host is a moderator. Not every moderator is an event host.
I actually agree. You dropped the word earlier, privilege. And to be honest, people feel like because you are on the radio, you must, of course, know how to either host an event, moderate an event, or go into voiceovers, which is something I do as well. However, it's not necessarily so. Not everyone is blessed with or privileged to have every skill that pertains to speaking.
Because now the word you use is skill.
Yes.
Skill is practiced knowledge. Practiced knowledge. So if you don't have the knowledge to moderate, you cannot moderate right. You will moderate, but it will probably be a flop. The same way a lot of, honestly speaking, and without any shade to anyone, a lot of comedians haven't learned how to speak to audiences. They know how to give punchlines and jokes, but not how to speak to audiences. So it has to be learned and practiced, then it becomes a skill.
I remember a former colleague of mine, well celebrated female presenter, and she was called on to co-host a big event, and she was trembling on stage. It was a nightmare for her. In fact, she had this other actor who was a co-host as well. I mean, literally the whole night she hid behind him, whether figuratively or literally. She couldn't necessarily hold her own. It just shows you that because you are because you're a public speaker may not necessarily mean you've got what it takes to be on the radio, or because you're on the radio may not necessarily mean you have what it takes to
Be
be
on
a
stage.
voiceover artist or be on stage. You have to
You have to
learn
learn.
the skill,
Yes.
and hence what you do teach people
Yes, I
these
do.
skills, right?
So you talked about stage fright,
Yes.
which usually is about the first question that comes up in almost any class. Fright is, I always say, fright is like a blinker on the dashboard of a car.
Okay.
Fear is like a blinker. It shows you to check something. So this morning, driving out from the gym, a light came out on the dashboard, and I didn't know what it was. So my husband said, "Oh, that's saying we should check the tires."
Right.
So we stopped, and the back tire, one of the back tires, had an issue. Now, that is what fear is. Fear tells you to check something. You just need to know what to check. So fright is saying, have you checked your content? Do you know what you're about to say? It's saying, do you know your audience? Have you prepared where you're starting from, where you're ending? If questions come, do you know how to answer them? Do you know your material? So fear is to be embraced because it makes you check. It shouldn't make you, what it tends to do to a lot of people, it tends to make people cripple, so to speak. But no, it should make you check. And you see, the more you know a subject, the more you know an audience. That's why when a lot of people are speaking with their friends, they're not afraid because you know your friends. You know what kind of questions they could ask you. And if you don't even know the answer, you will say, "Abe, come on, Joe, I don't know what you're talking about." So the more you know your audience and know your subject, the less fear or stage fright you feel. So I say, when the fright comes, let that blinker ask you questions. Are you ready? What do you know? And take action to get the knowledge. Don't just stay in the limbo of fear. Say, okay, fine, so who is my audience? What do I know about them? What are possible questions to come? Do the work. And you see, the more you do the work, the more confident you feel. It's the same thing like exam fear. Some people who have studied, head into the exam halls, feel confident, right? But those of us back in the day who hadn't studied enough were the ones who would be so scared, who would be outside the exam hall like, hey, have you checked this topic? Have you checked that topic? Because we haven't done the work. So fear is just asking you to check if you've done the work.
So stage fright is just all about fear.
Yes, it is.
And they do say fear stands for false evidence
Appearing real. No, I would say it could be real evidence too. It could show you that you haven't done the work, you haven't prepared. So for example, you're going in to speak at a conference to colleagues in the same space as you. Let's say you're an architect and you're going to speak at an architecture conference, right? You know your material, you don't have a problem with that, but you don't know the people who are going to be there, and that's where the fear comes from. So how do you deal with that? The action will be try and arrive early. If there's a pre-conference tea or cocktail or something, attend it. Say hello to people, get to know people's names, where they're coming from,
Get
all of
familiar
that.
and comfortable.
Get familiar, get comfortable. What happens to your fear then? It goes down because the fear was asking you to check something, and you checked that it was the people you didn't know. Now you know more of the people. Guess what happens to the fear? It fizzles out.
Yeah.
So fear is just, it could be real. It could be a real thing telling you to check something. And then you could think, oh, supposing they ask me about blah, blah, blah. Gosh, I have no idea what to respond. Do the research. Get the answers out. Or find someone else in the room who can answer that question when it comes. And those are techniques in public speaking. So I always use the term, know the resources in your room, including the other people. So I'm going to speak at a conference, and I know, oh, Professor, this person is sitting there. Oh, ex-governor, something is here. Oh, this person is there. So if I'm asked a question I don't know, I can very easily say, I see Professor so-and-so is sitting here, and I know he worked on this, that, 2-3 years ago. Professor, please, I would like to pass the question over to you because I know your response will be definitely better than mine. That's knowing the resource in your room. And guess what? Professor takes the mic, answers the question. You had no clue what the response was going to be, but you knew Professor was there. So you see, fear is reduced when you know. You know who's in the room. You know what questions might come. You know the people in the room, or at least you're familiar with them. That's what fear is.
I think the idea is to do the work.
Do the work.
Do your research. It's very simple. Information is power in every ramification of life, including public speaking. If you've done your due diligence, you've done the work, you've done your research, you know who's coming, you know what it's all about, you've expanded your knowledge on the topic or theme of the event. Hey, you get more comfortable. For me, when I host social events, weddings, receptions, and all that, how I unwind or how I get myself out of stage fright.
Okay.
I mean, at the time, before the event starts, DJ is already playing. Dance.
Exactly.
I'm a horrible dancer, you must understand, Joyce. When I say I dance,
I've heard you say that
you might think, you might imagine me breaking rules. I am horrible. Listen, no, you need to understand. I am a horrible dancer. So when guests who are coming in, because the first item on the floor of the event is welcoming of guests. So when they're coming in, and you see this well-suited up guy at the corner doing something that looks like he should be dancing. It's awkward. But for me, I'm trying to get familiar. All right.
Now that's a physiological response
Absolutely.
to the energy of fear. Because I have a BSc in anatomy, so I did a lot of
Okay.
bits of anatomy and physiology.
Okay.
When you move your body, when you exercise, you tend to get rid of some of the energy that is bringing the jitters. So something else you can do with your fear, I say that I call it the 15 minutes before or the 15 seconds before. In fact, it could even be the 15 days before. Find out, write with a pen, don't type. Get a pen and paper because of the hand-brain connection, and that's a whole different story for another day. And write out the reasons why you are the one speaking. Why is it you? What are your powers? Why are you the person solving the problem that day, speaking before a board, making a presentation, emceeing an event? Why you? And say, it is me because I know this. It is me because I do this. It is me because, and you see, focus on that. Like, I am the one asked to speak today because I'm the one with the right knowledge. I've had the experience for 12 years. I've done this, I've delivered this project, that project. So that gives you energy. And whilst you're doing that, you can pace. You can take walks. So say, if you can do a little exercise, that's fine, which is your dancing,
Yeah.
right? But by all means, avoid, please, avoid with your life. Avoid, supposing they ask me a question, hey, this person, they just want to get blood from me.
Yourself.
Can you imagine? Hey, they just want to get blood from me. I'm sure this madam, she set me up. This or that set me up because they just want me to fail. No, don't second guess yourself. Don't sabotage yourself. Build yourself. I call it your 15 minutes before. 15 minutes before your presentation, remind yourself why you are the one who is right there and all the powers you have and you bring to the table.
Yes, indeed. It's all about public speaking and how to be a public speaker. We've got today our guest, a professional speaker, no, definitely professional, master of ceremonies, Joyce Daniels. Let's go for a break for about 4 minutes or so. We'll buy the time back over, not too early. On the other side, we'll take your reactions, your comments, your questions. Send them over on WhatsApp 0909-217-2973. Stay here. Yeah.
Good stuff.
How's it going?
I'm enjoying myself terribly.
That's the idea.
Who are those?
Huh?
Who are those in the photo?
What's the film up there?
Yeah.
That's Foreplay, the jazz group.
Okay.
They came to Nigeria, so they were here.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
Foreplay.
one in the hood, the white hood. Yeah, I know.
Familiar. Oh,
Yeah, they're, now that you said it, I'm like, okay, I know these guys.
Right, yeah. If you do jazz very well, you know Foreplay.
So what's in all these?
Those are pretty much the songs we have on the system. The gold discs. Songs that made it to gold. You know, you've got platinum, you've got gold. So these are gold discs. Yeah. There's a whole lot missing. A lot more.
The station that plays every Sunday.
Yes. Have you ever thought of working on the radio?
I am thinking about it now. So I'm running for local government chairman. No, I'm not.
You do what?
I'm running to be local government chairman.
Okay.
in every state.
Okay.
The elections have been postponed
Which you're living in
5 times. So I moved to Benin 2 years ago. Actually. So I shuffled. I mean,
And I thought you when you were in
right
Lagos.
time, perfect time. So postpone. I said, you know what, I'm going back home. My husband is here, our children are here.
Okay.
I'll go back to Lagos, take my job, make some money, be relevant, and whenever I need to be home. So I was there to vote. I might be there after Easter. I want to do a program for women. I just said to my husband on his name is George because I don't like calling him my husband. I call him George. I just said to George on Friday or Thursday that if the election doesn't hold by July, I think I would move focus on something else. And for the first time, I think in computer should be on radio people. 2 reasons. I love it. I am settled enough now to do it. With my MCing, at some point I couldn't be on radio. I got 3 offers at different times, but I had to be in one city every other day. But now that I'm able to determine my clients,
Right, okay.
I don't work for everybody anymore.
Yeah.
So I have more time to be on radio, be on TV. I love it, I enjoy it, and I think there's a lot of value to bring in.
But you find that people who are good at public speaking, they do very good in radio, but there might be a problem there. It's like the person, I've used the person who's very good at stage acting, and they go for the first time to be on stage.
Terrible.
You know, to be on stage is different from being on stage. Voice projection and your movement on stage and all, body movement and all that, it's different on stage. So a bit of a struggle itself for them. Maybe the same
On my
thing.
judgment period, yes.
It's the same thing for someone who's not in the radio, but it's just a public speaker or an MC, and they have that personality. It's there now, but in terms of conversing on the radio, it's kind of different.
It is different. It is different. Some days I listen and I'm like, who's this?
It's lovely. In fact, I was doing like a very good TV. I'm limited. You've not been able to be seen. It's all about your imagination. It's all about the listener's imagination. Being able to have it the way you want.
Like reading a book versus watching the movie.
Exactly. So I feel as if reading a book, it's your own fantasy. It's your own.
Wow.
It's your own imagination.
Sometimes when you see the movie after you read the book, you're like, nah.
Classic FM with Lawrence.
Well, they say money talks, and some people get paid to talk, like on the radio or on stage, at a conference, whether it's physical or virtual. It's all about public speaking, and you are listening to Ask a Professional. Our guest is, of course, a professional public speaker, an expert, prolific master of ceremonies. Joyce Daniels, she's been speaking to us today about public speaking. Next week is about becoming a master of ceremonies, so you don't want to mix that as well. She'll be here today and next week. Having fun, Joyce?
Yes, I am having fun. Thank you, Lauren.
Good stuff, good stuff. So you have a question, you have a comment or contribution, send it over on WhatsApp, 0909-217-2973. We got this one here, interestingly, from Michael Manja. Let's see if you agree with what he said. He says, I kind of disagree. Fear is more like the pH level value of water, which is between 6.5 and 8.5. If you put water in a flask, keg or bottle, the pH value remains the same, or like the boiling point, which is always about 100 degrees Celsius, be it in Gibraltar or Manhattan. Do you agree, or do you understand what he's saying?
I'm not very clear what exactly he means.
Neither am I, to be honest. Neither am I. But I think he's probably referring to our description or your take on fear, so stage fright. I don't know.
I'm not able to relate what I said to what he's saying. So, Michael, if you can clarify, please.
More questions, send them over to WhatsApp, 0909-217-2973. So we're going on. Okay, well, we've got this one. Okay, well, this is for something else. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so going now with public speaking.
questions for me?
Yeah, no, this one is for something else.
Okay.
Something else completely. Let's keep it around
So,
to what
so
we're talking
let's
about.
talk about some of the fundamentals for public speaking.
Yes.
Fundamental number one is know your subject. Know your subject. Know your subject. Now, I get a lot of questions around speaking impromptu. Hey, Joyce, what do I do when somebody asks me a question I'm not ready for? I say, know your subject. Many times, people ask us questions around the areas that we work in or we are professionals at.
Yes.
People hardly ask us questions outside our zone. So people ask us questions that we ought to know. So find what those questions, those possible questions are, and know them. On different websites, you see the FAQs, frequently asked questions. So what are the frequently asked questions for you as an individual listening to me right now? Or for that place where you're going to speak, that conference, that interview, that pitch, that the in-laws you're about to meet? What are the possible questions that you will be asked? Write them down. Do not assume. Get a pen and a journal, not a piece of paper, a journal, and write down all the possible questions that will come your way and figure out the answers so that you know your subject and you're very likely not caught off guard. Something else you can do is you can reach out to friends, family, co-workers, colleagues, and say, if you were to meet me at so and so place, what are some kind of questions you could ask me? Now, the benefit of this is they could ask you questions you would never have thought of yourself. And you say, oh, really? I didn't know somebody would ask me that. Then you go do the research. So do the work. So I say in public speaking, there really isn't anything like impromptu speaking or impromptu questions. It's just people who are not prepared. So prepare ahead. Prepare.
Okay, so is there a distinctive or clear difference between speaking at an event or conference live on stage and when it's virtual? Because thanks to the COVID year 2020,
Oh my
there's a lot
God.
of virtual
End all our lives.
hybrid events these days where
Yes.
some is on stage and others is online or virtual. So is there we be the public speaker now?
Mhm.
Is there a way to be
Yes.
when it's virtual? Is there another way to be when it's a live event, or is it all the same really?
Slight difference, very slight. So the difference is the quality of engagement. Now, in a live event or at a live event, you have your eye contact that could help. You have body movements, gestures. You can walk into the audience if appropriate and only if appropriate. But in the virtual space, it's slightly different because even if you're maintaining eye contact with the people you're seeing on the screen, they may not be maintaining eye contact with you. So what can you do? I very strongly recommend using questions that will elicit responses from people or elicit some sort of action from people. So you're speaking or you start your presentation and you say, hey, I'd just like to know where people are logging in from. So in the chats there, tell me where exactly you're logging in from. And you see people take action. They begin to write in, hey, I'm logging in from Port Harcourt, I'm from Brass, I'm from here, I'm from there. That's engagement. Other thing you can do is say things like, if this makes sense to you, if what I just said makes sense to you, please write to the chat, makes sense. Or give me an emoji in the chat. Guess what? Emojis begin to come in. So people are being engaged. You can ask sometime to say, I would like someone to unmute themselves and tell us about this. Now, the key is to factor it into your presentation. Don't wait to do it off the cuff. Put in your notes that at this point, I'll ask the audience if anybody would like to say this or if they'd like to ask questions. So pace yourself that every 5, 10, or 15 minutes, depending on how long you're speaking for, people should be responding to you intentionally. So either you're asking them to use the chat, or you're asking them to give you virtual hands up, or you're asking somebody to unmute themselves and speak, or you're asking a question and you want people to respond, or you're calling for questions so you can respond. By all means, be very aware, because when people are in virtual events, the possibility for distraction is high.
Very high.
Very high.
It was a bit of a struggle for MCs and speakers
Yes.
in 2020
Yes.
when it was all new, supposedly.
It was new to a lot of people. A lot
because
of
they're mostly
distractions.
at home.
Exactly. So you want to create activities that would make people stay with you through your talk. The idea of having a conversation with any public, 1 or 1,000 people, is for them to remember you and to remember what you said. I repeat, remember you and remember what you said. Some people just want everybody to remember what they said. But people remember what you said, usually when they remember you. It's you they remember first, and then they remember what you said. So do something that makes them stay on with you in the virtual space. Plan it. Other tiny little things would be careful of the biases of your audience. Know the gender, age, race, ethnicity, all of that, so that you're careful with the kinds of words, jokes that you use, so that you don't put people off. Then, of course, be careful about the angles. So I always talk about angles because sometimes someone comes on live and they're sitting in front of a window, an open window. So the light is behind them. So they are dark. So people don't get to see them clearly. They can only see all the light coming from behind. Guess what happens to engagement? It drops because people can't see you. Remember, people will remember you first. So be careful about your lighting. This is not the time for any professional in any field not to have a ring light. You need a ring light because you will speak online at some point or the other. So have your artificial lighting, or arrange your table in a way that it faces your natural light. Invest in good sound if need be. If your laptop or computer doesn't have very good sound, buy a wonderful headpiece or some podcast kind of mic that you can use. When the sound quality is good, people listen more.
Yes.
When they struggle to listen to you, they disengage. So invest in that. And I was talking about the height. Now, don't let people see into your nose. Don't look down on people when you're online. Ensure that your device is at eye level as best you can. So you might need to stack books to put your laptop on it, or use a phone stand if you're using a phone, just so that you're looking at people at eye level. Because when people are looking into your nose, they get so distracted, like, why is her nose? Why is his nose?
There's a bogey in there.
There's something in there. The hair isn't cut clean. Blah blah blah. Or when you are too far away, or they just can't see you very clearly. So these are things to watch out for in the virtual space. They can very easily affect the engagement of your audience.
And the one thing that goes without mentioning, of course, you're going to be moderating or hosting a virtual event, is you want very formidable internet connection.
Oh yes.
You can't be hotspot on your phone.
No, please do not.
Or sharing Wi-Fi with like your 5 neighbors or something.
Everybody has.
No,
You need to invest in
invest
your own device, and usually more than one.
Exactly.
Have
because
a
one can
backup
go
and a
down
backup
and
to
you
the backup.
you switch to the backup. Just the way you have like NEPA and generators.
Yes, you have your NEPA, you have gen, you have inverter, you have solar panels,
There you go.
4 sources. So
Yes,
have as
yes.
many as possible.
Especially as it is you are a professional, so to speak, public speaker. Okay, well, Michael and I just tried to send the clarification for we're out of time right now, but we'll go into it and see if it makes sense. He did say, your guest said fear is a way to check what's wrong and point out to fix it. My comment was to intimate that fear is more like a guide to the fact that there is no problem and hence no need for a solution. It is what it is, he says. I'm saying it's kind of an impossibility to make a tortoise become as fast as a cheetah.
Nah, Michael, sorry about that. We didn't quite get it.
I think I do actually. You did say fear is a sign that there is something
It's a
wrong.
guide. I think he
It's
used
a
the same
guide,
word, guide.
yes.
So you're going to meet your in-laws, your potential in-laws for the first time, and you are so scared. First thing you check, what am I wearing? Am I wearing what is appropriate? Yes. Oh, do I know how to greet them in their local dialect if I like to do that? Yes. They might ask me about what I do. How do I explain it? Check. They might ask me about how I met their daughter or their son and why I chose him or her. How do I respond? Check. And the more you check these things off your list, the less you fear. But the fear said to you, check.
Absolutely. I guess maybe fear, the word fear might be the problem. It's,
Yes, because we are so used to fear being a negative. It doesn't always have to be be negative.
Maybe instead of saying fear, we'd say nervousness.
Nervousness.
When you're nervous.
When you're nervous. Okay.
When you're nervous, you're afraid. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing.
6 and half a dozen.
There you go. Tomatoes.
That's right.
And on that note, it's 5 minutes past now. We are actually done with the show for today. Part 1 for the show. We have a lot of people, several messages here asking to get in touch with you. So, if a person wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that? You've got social media, you have a telephone
yes.
number.
I am Joyce Daniels. I am Joyce Daniels on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube at Joyce Daniels, and I'll give you a phone number on which you can reach me on WhatsApp 0802 878 5916 0802 878 5916. www.joycedaniels.net is my website, and my email is joyce@joycedaniels.net. Google Joyce Daniels, you'll find me, the lady wearing green, and all my contacts are there.
Okay, so today we've spoken about how to be or what to be, look out for if you want to be a public speaker. She will be here next Monday, and we will talk about how to become a master of ceremonies.
I'm excited already.
I love it. I love it. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, half. I'll give you the that half.
Okay,
Thank you next week. Yeah, thank. I'll give you the you next week.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, keep it here. We're going back into the Classic Lounge of Classic FM 97.3. Don't move a muscle.
To bring back